This is part 4. This is going to be the final part of the interview. And we were talking about the acrimony in different groups, and it just seems like it gets really bad. We had a group that came to Whittier recently, the Westboro Baptists,
Yes.
and they promote a lot of extremism.
Yeah.
What is your position on violent extremism?
Look, here in Whittier, it doesn't. I know this was a recent situation. I've lived here over 20 years, about 27 years now. I've seen it. Down the street, you walk down, and I feel people have the right to express themselves. But in the same respect, you have to allow everyone to express themselves. You can't just seclude and favor one group. Here we have a Planned Parenthood down the street, and we have protesters there all the time where these signs that are very extreme, very close to a path where kids walk to school. You have the Boys and Girls Club, you have a park. It's being allowed. Now, I'm in favor of protesting. You should always challenge authority when you feel something's wrong. But in the same respect, there has to be a tolerance where you have the freedom to express your views, but at the same respect, there has to be a degree of censorship if it becomes volatile to the condition of that situation. Like here, these people that were protesting, I've read up on them. I've known what they've been doing for many, many years. I don't agree with it. I think that it's in bad taste. I looked into their fundamentals, how they started, and it's extremely surprising to know that their leader was fighting for the minority at one point.
I don't understand is how did he flip over?
Exactly, and the thing is that it's difficult to understand, but knowing that that these people are out there expressing themselves, when you challenge them, the situation becomes more volatile. I think that one of the best outcomes from that situation recently was that you did have a presence of people, but it was kept peaceful. You may have had them screaming or yelling, repeating their rhetoric, but you also had members of the community there representing a different mindset. But the beautiful thing was that it didn't blow up into a larger situation. In a situation like that, we always should have police presence to ensure that there's a peaceful demonstration. But overall, I don't feel that we should have members in the community to incite the other side and say, you better go out there and you better fight back and you better do this and you better do that because they're a hate group. The dangerous part with that is that when you have a group that's considered to be hateful and you represent yourself the same way, you're also part of that hate group.
You're feeling it.
So you have to understand that, like in the 70s, love and peace go further than hate. A lot of times when we allow a dangerous situation to grow by not stepping in, it becomes a
So
really
isn't
bad
it true
situation.
that if we just let them do their thing, they'll just burn themselves out?
Well, you'd hope that hasn't been the case with this group, but you should also turn out with a peaceful message. You know, they're obviously making their own version, quotes, their own versions of the Bible. You had other people that were coming out representing our community, but we always have to be cautious. Like I said, I do believe in protest, but I also believe in safety. We have to make sure that as a city leader or as a police department, we have to become the mediators and keep separation. And the moment someone starts becoming volatile, regardless on what side you are in, we have to keep a balance where we have to shut down these individual people, because in the end of it all, we all have the right to express.
So there's extremism on all sides, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to work to detain those.
Yes, because then you deliver your message. If you push back with hate, all you're doing is proving a point to someone that might not have all the information. They might say, you know what, these people have it right because look at them. Or they might say, look at these people, they're horrible people. And the sad thing is that you tend to have kids in these groups on a lot of occasions. And I think instead of creating that as a learning moment for your children on your points of view, you throw them in there and they grow up feeling hostile towards a different group that they might not even know. Because at the end of it all, we have to have hope that a group that comes in with bad intentions, with hate, slowly by exposing themselves, you'll have members that trickle away and figure out that's probably not the best way to do it. Or I no longer agree with that because now I see more. So, that might change. And we always have to be hopeful that these people might have a change of heart and say, you know what,
Eventually.
I don't agree with everything. Because I know that some of them have left from the original group. They've changed their life around and they try to say, you know what, it's a bad situation.
It does seem like they are a much smaller group than when they started out. And I believe it was around 2006 they got their start. I was in the military. I served at Fort Huachuca, and some of the funerals I went to, they were there,
Yeah.
and they were pretty vocal. They were pretty vicious.
Yeah,
It seems like the group that we saw in Whittier recently, that was, people complain about it, but that was nothing compared to back in the day when they were more active and there was more members and their leader was still around.
Of course, and the thing is that some of these people that showed up, they're from the original group. I recognize some of them through the pictures that were there. I drove by. My wife wanted to go there, to the Whittier College, but we ended up just deciding that sometimes it's best to just keep on moving because we saw that there was no situation. They were there standing with their signs. We got out of the house a little later, so we're probably missing the majority of it. Let's just go have some dinner, but it didn't become a large problem. Like I said, you had people representing both sides, but overall it seemed pretty peaceful compared to what we've seen them do in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm glad that it turned out
What I'm
well.
wondering about is, because his wife took over, and I heard that she's a lawyer, and that she goes around doing these things to get publicity for herself, for her law firm.
Yeah, I know they like to talk about they mentioned a lawsuit, and they like to talk about the number when they were being sued, and they almost lost, but then that ended up being overturned, and they won, and they see it as a way that proves that they're correct. Now, from then to now, that number does seem a lot smaller. But in time, we'll see if it dies with them. I know their kids have, some of them have grown up, but like I mentioned before, some of them have left that group. And I think that there's hope for any group, but it's not the only group that causes situations here. Like I said, down the street, I'm glad that people feel comfortable enough to protest, but we need to be thinking about the signage that they're using and maybe saying, look, you have this right, but
Can you tone it down a little bit?
yeah, but these images, although they're effective, there's a school, there's a park, there's an area for these kids for after school, and you're out here, so maybe tone it down. Don't present the signs that would cause more damage than help your cause.
Okay, I want to ask about talking about sustainability. We've always been known as a green city. We're a tree city, pretty much. You go up to the top of the Hellman Trail, or you go to the top of the parking structure, the existing parking structure, and you look around, and all you see is trees. You don't really see the buildings of Whittier. Part of the uptown plan was to cut down some of the trees, and people were complaining about that. But is that really such a big deal when we still have tens of thousands of trees in Whittier?
Well, look, here in Whittier, here in Whittier, we're at a higher point than LA.
Yes.
If you're ever driving towards LA,
You go top of the structure, like I said.
Yeah.
Either the top of the structure or the top of the Hellman Trail. You got a good view of downtown LA.
But one thing that we see is brown. You see, all these. It just looks brown, like in the '80s.
Yes.
You see all the toxicity in the air out there. Here, we don't struggle with that because of these same trees. we're actually a preservation. We preserve a lot of endangered species. We have bats, owls, turkey vultures, red-tailed hawks. You have all these different hummingbirds. You have bees flying through that are headed towards Mexico. And if you're walking down the trail, you see, like, they look like flowers, but all these different butterflies that are attached to these brushes and trees. I know that here in Uptown they have that ideology to cut down these trees, but it makes no sense because their maintenance isn't higher. They keep chopping them. If they really wanted to accentuate the structure of these beautiful buildings, they trim from the bottom up and allow the trees to grow above the buildings. And when it comes to those berries, well, there's no berries right now because of the weather conditions. When it's cold, they don't produce berries. And at one point when we had an arborist working for our city, they would create a cocktail that maintained and controlled these berries from not growing and falling. But once you let these people go, then you start getting
They control the tree hormones.
Yeah, but in the end of it all, we are a city of trees. The moment we cut into it, it's like taking away a percentage of our ability to breathe. We have construction work happening all around us. These trees are of a great help. I believe in taking care of our trees. If they're damaged or if they need to be removed, if they really are a huge problem,